Okay, good afternoon. I'm afraid you are quite tired by now because, as I heard, you are sitting here since 9 o'clock in the morning. So if there's some oxygen left, I'd be happy to share, so to say, a bit of my personal approach to film and music with you. But first, I want to thank you, Radostina especially, for inviting me to your conference. And I would like to encourage you, while I'm speaking, to have a kind of conversation with me. So please do ask questions all in between, remark on something, contribute something. Don't be shy to interrupt me, because if I bore you to death, you might not be able to ask any questions when I'm finished. Okay. The two big loves of my life are music and film, because I think nothing much gets you more in contact with your emotions than music and moving images, namely film. So this is why I speak about both today, and I would like to start with a little story. You might close your eyes and imagine you back, if you have seen any film taking place in the 50s, imagine yourself back into the 50s. I was born 1956. And at that time, when I grew up, in the beginning of the 60s, there was no such thing like globalization. Think about food. You had the regional food like apples and pears. You didn't have any melons or mangoes. When you went for a holiday, you didn't go to the Bahamas or to South America. As a German person, you just traveled to Austria or Switzerland, because they speak some kind of German there, no offense. Or if you were really adventurous, you went to Italy to spend your holiday. So at that time, you weren't connected to the world, and your mental world was also quite limited. So I got into contact with other cultures when I was quite small. I was supposed to go to kindergarten, but as the kindergarten in the little village where I come from was run by nuns, I wasn't very pleased, and after a week I told my parents that I wouldn't like to go there, and they said, okay, you can stay at home, but you have to take care of yourself. I think they thought I might be, after a while, bored, so they let me stay at home, but I wasn't bored. I spent my mornings for 3 years in the living room of my parents' apartments, listening to music. And among those music discs, at that time there were still discs. I mean, nowadays it's called vinyl, but at that time discs. They had quite a collection of French chansons. So me being 4 years old, I was jumping up and down the sofa to Edith Piaf, Milord, or whatever I was playing along. And this is the way I spent my mornings for 3 years. And my first connection to a foreign language, to a kind of music, oh, I forgot to mention, at that time in Germany, there was only Schlager. It's very difficult to translate, but chanson is much more sophisticated than the German Schlager at that time. Even the Italian canzone was much more sophisticated than German Schlager. It was a kind of march music. Everybody was clapping on 1 and 3, and it wasn't much, yeah? So to listen to Edith Piaf was something special. And this manifested later on in an interest in the French language. So when I came to school, to high school, my class was the first class to choose French as a second language. All the others everybody started with English, but till that time, the second language was Latin, but we were the first class to go on with French. So my generation as well was the first generation who had an exchange with France to learn about the French culture and the French people, because after World War II, as you might know, there was no connection between France and Germany. There were a lot of prejudices. And I mean, I never understood the saying, curiosity killed the cat, because I don't know what that means, but I'm sure that curiosity kills prejudice, because if you are curious and you want to know about your neighbor or other countries, other people, other music, whatever, whomever, you get a fresh perspective. You don't rely on second-hand talk. So off I went to France to learn the language. Off I went to England to learn English. This was inspired by my deep love to American Forces Network, because I come from nearby Frankfurt am Main, and that was the only station which didn't play Schlager, but all the black music, Motown label, and so on. Okay, how about film? Now I talked a lot about music, but today I think the conference is called Film for Peace. So my first experience regarding film was also in my little hometown. We had the cinema directly in front of the building where the apartment of my parents was in, and it was the only cinema within 20 kilometers range. So I was completely excited when I was allowed with 6 years to go to the cinema and to see a movie, which wasn't a movie at all, but kind of little Walt Disney clips, one after the other. In between, there was the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer lion roaring, and then the next clip followed. So when the lion roared for a last time, I was deeply disappointed that the show had come to an end, and I was infected with the love for cinema from that time on. In the following years, I have spent lots and lots and lots of nights at the cinema, and whenever I was in the cinema, I was completely happy to be there by myself, or later, when I was allowed to, myself and a bottle of beer. And everybody always asked me, so why don't you ask friends to come to cinema with you? And I said, oh, I'm so happy to see this and to be there by myself and just to watch the movie. And I don't have to talk about it afterwards. I'm totally content to be there with myself. When I waited outside to give this, I'm afraid now it's turned into a kind of lecture, but please do interrupt me, as I said. If you have to contribute something of your own life experience you have with music and film, please do so. Yeah, I asked a young student from the institute who obviously came from France if he knew Jean-Jacques Hano, a French director, and he said no. So I thought, oh my God, it's a kind of generation conflict. Nobody will know what you are talking about. But nevertheless, I want to mention 3 movies I was quite impressed by. One of them being a movie by Jean-Jacques Hano, whom I just mentioned, The Bear, in French, L'Ours. And it impressed me because it's almost without words. And there, so to say, the marriage between music and film becomes a happy marriage, because it only works via the music and the moving images, this film. The other 2 movies I would like to mention is one by Woody Allen. I'm not a fan of Woody Allen, but I was very impressed by this movie, which is called Annie Hall. It takes place in Manhattan, and there is a camera take of the skyline of Manhattan by night, together with George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, which kind of engraved these images in my heart, because of as I said, the go-together of music and film. And the third movie I want to mention as a very good example regarding film and music is a movie by Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho. Has anybody seen it? Yeah, yeah. There is the famous scene under the shower when the girl takes a shower and she is showering, and everybody is aware of the fact that something will happen. And then you see the shadow I get the goosebumps while I'm talking about it, yeah. And then everybody sees a shadow behind the shower curtain, and then the music sets in with such a vigor, and the stabbing starts that you are really, oh, yeah. Though it's so old, the movie, I'm still frightened by this scene, yeah. So these movies, to me, represent a very good combination of film and music. So, but now to the fact I don't know, Radostina didn't mention it, but I'm working pro bono for a film festival. I think you have heard a lot about festivals today, which is a festival called SEEFF, meaning Southeast European Film Festival à Berlin. Why à Berlin? Because it was founded in Paris, and now we are cooperating, or the SEEFF is cooperating with the film festival in Paris. This is why SEEFF is called SEEFF à Berlin. But how did it come to that? Now from Hitchcock to Balkan and Southeastern Europe. Yeah. In between, I became mother of 2 children, one of them being a son, and one day my son called me and said, "Mom, I'm given a grant. I can decide whether I would like to go to Scandinavia, to England, to France, to Italy, or to Prague." And I said to him, "Well, listen, I think Prague is very interesting because you speak French and Italian and English. So open yourself up a whole new world, which is Eastern Europe." So off he went to Prague, and apart from sitting in a beer barrel, I think he studied a bit as well. And he traveled a lot across Eastern Europe. So he fell in love with the Balkans, and I must stress the fact it was really the Balkans, not a beautiful woman from Belgrade or wherever, it were the Balkans. And he even started working there after his studies. So I visited him a lot, and I fell in love with the Balkans as well. And it started, as it started always in my life, with music. I went to a music festival in Guča. Yeah, obviously someone knows it, yeah. And I mean, Guča has nothing to do with the kind of watered down Balkan beats you listen to when you go to a club here in Berlin. It's the real stuff, yeah. You have Boban I Marko Markovic Orchestra. I was totally mesmerized. I was dancing 3 days and nights, and then I had a kind of breakdown and I left Guča. But this is... But this is so to say how it all started. And then I became interested in, so to say, the world of films on the Balkan. And I found out that apart from this huge festival, or very well-known festival in Bosnia-Herzegovina, Sarajevo, there are a lot of festivals on the Balkans. I think in Croatia there are almost 20 film festivals. In Bosnia-Herzegovina there are 9 film festivals. In Serbia there are 26, and Slovenia there are 8 festivals. So there are really a lot of film festivals. And I would like to stress that this area of art, namely film and music, are the 2 fields where cooperation and reconciliation works very well on the Balkans. There is nothing compared to these 2 fields. Because, and now because I think, to me, because I read a lot about the Yugoslav war, it's a touchy subject. I would like to quote from the Bundeszentrale für politische Bildung, which is a very reliable source in Germany. Because if you think of the Balkan wars, no, sorry, that's the wrong expression, of the Yugoslav wars, it was a conflict, not only a conflict, but a war in the middle of Europe. I remember when I was 18, it was my first time to travel to Greece. So I traveled to Greece via Yugoslavia. And imagine yourself being on a holiday wherever, and then looking back, you realize that this was a country where a war happened, where you have been to a holiday. It wasn't a remote corner of the world where a war took place, but as I just said, in the middle of Europe, there was a war. And it was a civil war. I'm not sure if you're all aware of what happened, so I just mentioned some facts. It started in 1991 by Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia, and Slovenia, leaving, so to say, the Yugoslavian Republic. And it was one of the most bloodiest wars, civil wars ever. And I mean, almost everybody, and now I would really like to quote, I mean, there's a limit to free speech, to quote from the Bundeszentrale, because as I said, I don't want to mix up the historical facts because I think it's important. The reason why I mention it very shortly is to make you aware of what happened and how difficult it is and will be in the aftermath to get together again, to work together again, as I just mentioned, which works very fine in the sector of film and music. But let me just give you some rough details. Often described as Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II, the conflicts have become infamous. I'm talking about the Yugoslav wars from 1991 till 2001, for the war crimes involved, including ethnic cleansing, crimes against humanity, and rape. These were the first European conflicts since World War II to be formally judged genocidal in character, and many key individual participants were subsequently charged with war crimes. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia was established by the UN to prosecute these crimes. According to the International Center for Transnational Justice, the Yugoslav wars resulted in the death of 140,000 people. The Humanitarian Law Center estimates that in the conflicts in former Yugoslav republics, at least 130,000 people lost their lives. The most well-known incident was the Srebrenica massacre in July 1995. One of the worst crimes, genocide of more than 8,000 Muslim Bosniaks on European soil since World War II. Okay, I will leave out everything else because I don't want to ignite a political discussion, but talk about film and reconciliation. And I remember fairly well when I visited Belgrade for the first time in my life, my son told me, if you step down the plane into a cab, don't talk about politics and religion. You are always wrong. So I'm not going to further elaborate on this. But starting with Guta, going on with the historical backgrounds, one day at the Slavistic Institute, I read an ad asking for volunteers for the Southeast European Film Festival. And I volunteered because I thought, okay, you are very curious about what they are going to show and what they are going to do. And you like to be in touch with this culture. So I'm now a pro bono festival coordinator for the SEEFF. And now I like to quote again about the SEEFF to give you a short impression, what is it all about. I think by now 15 countries are participating from all over Southeastern Europe. The SEEFF is cooperating with the Humboldt University. It's also cooperating with the Franco-German Youth Office, and they are building along the guidelines of the Franco-German Youth Office the so-called RAICO, which is, I love acronyms, the Regional Youth Cooperation Office. Yeah. And let me just, as I said, quote something about the SEEFF à Berlin. The SEEFF à Berlin is a transnational European collaboration of film and cultural producers to create a new cross-border cultural infrastructure in Berlin. This offers the audience an insight into a previously sparsely, quote-unquote, illuminated part of European film, thus enabling cultural education and development. As I said, alongside to the festival, the Regional Youth Cooperation Office is founded, which I found very important because it just steps in what I said is already done by the festivals and music to form some kind of reconciliation. Because as you might imagine, a civil war is especially brutal because it might be your neighbor who has done, okay, I try to put this in bearable words, who might have done harm to your family. So yeah, it's a hard work to do, and I think to form a youth organization, to find some new form of understanding is very important. And naturally, all the embassies from the participating countries in this festival are taking part in the festival as well. Yeah. One rule of the festival is to show films which haven't been presented in Germany before. So the film must, so to say, be brand new and not to be seen, have seen either in France or in Germany. And then it will be presented at the SEEFF. The last, this is a little, I'm not sure about that. Oh, I'm good in the time. Yeah. Okay, super. Yeah. So far, has anybody any questions? Before I go on, because I want to show you a little trailer, a film which wasn't shown at the SEEFF, but a film which I treasure a lot because it's very quiet, it's very poetic, it's nevertheless very political. And before I show you the trailer, I would like to give you a short summary about the film, but if you have any questions or something to remark on, please do so. Nothing so far?
I have to ask, because I'm from region, I live in Austria for many, many years.
Yeah. Where do you come from?
Thank you. Actually, I'm very mixed. Born in Croatia, but having family all around.
Yeah.
I have many colleagues in the film industry and doing also festivals and also people who work with youth. And the main problem is with memories. Diaspora societies are creating some sort of artificial identity and memory projects. So young generation is trying to overcome through movie and music festivals, but this potential has been stopped in many times to develop better synergies through opposite projects, which are forcing still only memories about negativity.
Yeah.
So what happened? Maybe we can think about also how can we better promote this balanced historical development that we should not forget, but even not force.
Yeah.
Remembering only bad things, because it happened in all nations.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. I think because I remember once in the summer heat, sitting in a restaurant at noon somewhere in Serbia, and a guy approached our table, and he was from France, but he was an exile, and after the conversation took place in Serbian, my son is fluent in Serbian, and after I said, what were you talking about? And he said he was hellishly pro-Serbia. I don't want to repeat this to you, mother, what he said, because of him being, I think he had lived for 25 years in France, and he was a vigorous fighter for the Serbian standpoint. So I totally agree that this sometimes may be very controversial and difficult. Yeah, from outside, true. So to meet in person, I think like the speaker before me said, tops everything. And I think this is a super thing, so to say, about the festivals, that you can meet in person. And the festival here in Berlin, I think last time there were 2,000 people attending. It's taking place in May, this year from the 24th till the 28th. So we still need volunteers, but apart from that, if you are interested, please do come. So yeah, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, I would like to make you acquainted with a film which touched me a lot, because it's, as I said, very quiet and poetic and not screaming loud, but nevertheless presenting in a very convincing way what we are dealing with regarding the Balkans. The film is a Slovenian film produced by a Czech producer and is called Beyond Boundaries. Beyond Boundaries is a European road movie set along the scar lines inflicted by war. It tells of rupture in the lives of inhabitants, of those living in places where the border is called meja or granica or frontiera, along Slovenia's borders with Austria, Hungary, Croatia, and Italy. The film explores these borders, their nature, their creation, and how they change. Is a state without borders possible? Are emotions, thoughts, relationships, languages, and ideas curtailed by borders? The different landscapes of the various regions and the experiences of their inhabitants melt to create a cinematic kaleidoscope of sights and stories. Thomas Plenert's sensitive and nuanced cinematography documents people and places. I'm happy I got over the word cinematography. Documents people and places by means of extraordinary images. Texts by Aleš Steger accompany the documentary material into a literary past and present. They speak of the sea, of mountains, rivers, forests, and lowlands. The poems evoke constant change and displacement. Nothing stays the same, not even the borders that pass like shifting sand dunes along the valleys, lakes, and rivers before receding into nothingness. This poetry of transformation is the essence of Beyond Boundaries. The score, composed for the film by Jelena Zdrale and Nino de Gleria, is inspired in equal part by ethno-jazz, contemporary music, and Balkan sounds. Brina Fogelnik, one of Slovenia's most distinctive singers, adds her voice to an intricate musical tapestry with its roots in traditional song to accompany the cinematic journey. Music establishes spaces for the multifarious moods of Aleš Steger's text. The delicately arranged composition references sounds that relate specifically to the musical histories of these lands. The film, Beyond Boundaries, is a visual feast and a philosophical journey to the heart of Europe. The protagonists encounter en route, and their personal stories mirror their lives beyond boundaries, yet serve too as a reminder of the threat to common ground in an unbounded Europe where, despite all things, borders are again being mooted. In other words, Beyond Boundaries is a philosophical meditation on something we are not far from losing, Europe. Okay, and now you see the trailer. Thank you very much for your attention.